So I just want to thank the media again for coming every week. We appreciate you helping us get the word out. I know that your job isn't easy as well. And I also have been mentioning Brooks and Fort Mac at these conferences, and it looks like things are improving there. So, our hearts go out to our fellow Albertans, and thankfully, things seem to be settling down in Brooks as well as Fort Mac. I hope that most of you enjoyed Mother's Day. Perhaps some of you who haven't seen your mother or got to have a chat with her, or those mothers that are still with their children. I hope that you were able to have a great Mother's Day, and then of course we'll be looking forward to Father's Day, and things may change a little bit for Father's Day, so something to look forward to. Last week's press conference was, we announced about the fireworks, and that was a little upsetting, and it took away maybe some hope and optimism, but actually this week I do feel a lot more hope and optimism going into May 14th and the Phase 1 reopening. Everywhere I go, people are asking me questions, talking about it, excited about getting out, excited about the fact that many of you need haircuts and can't wait to go sit on a patio somewhere. But what the city and what we really want to stress, and AHS has been stressing this in the province, is that with this hope comes caution. We have proven in Medicine Hat that we can follow the rules, and that our numbers, I keep saying this, are some of the lowest per capita in the province of Alberta, even in the country. And that's because we've been vigilant. And so now with this sense of optimism that we're allowed out and maybe get to go back to our favorite patio or get to finally see the dentist or have a haircut, that we think that everything is okay, and it isn't. Perhaps now is actually where we need to be even more vigilant than we were in the past, because you'll be out so the 2 meters has not changed. The coughing in, the washing your hands, those things haven't changed at all, and perhaps bear even more significance now that we will be perhaps mingling a little bit more with each other. And Councillor Turnbull was on the phone this morning, and I thought he made a really great comment this morning. He said, when you get in a boat, you don't expect it to sink, but you still wear your life jacket. Or when you put on your seatbelt when you get in your car, you're not expecting to crash, but you're planning and safety first. So I just want to reiterate that the vigilance doesn't end today. And I also want to thank the Hatters again. I was listening on the radio on the way here this morning to work, and I heard Chief McGrogan on the radio this morning mentioning the fact that the City Police haven't issued any tickets to Hatters. And that goes back to that education part, and I want to thank everybody for that, because nobody wants to get a ticket during these times, so I thank you about that. Utility deferral, you've been asking me questions about that. That's going to corporate services today. There'll be more information there as well, but I'll take any questions if you have. Some of you may have seen some of the open material already. When it comes to the business assistance package, you've been asking me when we are going to perhaps be releasing some details as to what maybe the criteria will be looking for those grants, those loans. As I said before, it's going to be released in tranches, probably about $500,000 on the first one, and that criteria should hopefully be available around June 1st. I know that there's been a lot of interest. Entrecor has been receiving calls about 2 minutes after we announced it last Monday night, so please stay tuned. As well, I keep going back to this. I'm very aware. I get emails all the time. I'm very, very, very extremely, acutely, chronically aware of the differences in opinions on this pandemic. From what I keep saying, from that it's nothing but a hoax to it's the end of days. And all I keep asking, and I'm seeing it, and I'm thanking you as the residents of Medicine Hat, respect your differences of opinions. Just because you and I may not disagree about the severity of this doesn't mean we still can't have a fruitful conversation or a dialogue without degrading into nastiness. So, and that has been going on for the most part, but of course I do see the yahoos and the knuckleheads on Facebook and the social media saying just terrible things. I know that there were some comments as to why the city just announced the number of layoffs. And then the comments were, whoa, what took the city so long to do the layoffs or to start cutting back? These layoffs occurred 2 months ago, frankly. And I know that the media of you tried to get that out, but people start commenting before they read the rest of the article or listen to the story. And I don't know, it seems to be this race to the bottom, okay? If Lethbridge lays off 200 people, City of Medicine Hat needs to lay off 205. Like, it's just some sort of race to see who can lay the most people off. And we have to remember that that's people's lives. and nobody wants to see anybody laid off. But the other thing we need to remember here is the City of Medicine Hat has taken a very, very different approach from most municipalities. We are trying to have business as usual in unusual times, or keep things as close to normal as possible in unusual times. And so what I mean by that is you can see that the grass is being watered. I'm going to challenge you to start finding potholes. Some other municipalities are in a cash flow crunch, can't do these types of things. So we are continuing to try to maintain a sense of normalcy. And so that takes some staff. As well, you don't hear about layoffs at NMAX very much, or Fortis or EBCOR, because those are utilities. Well, that's what the City of Medicine Hat does as well. We have a utility division, so we're still providing the electricity. So our percentage of employees on that side of the business, or that side of the municipality, have not experienced many or hardly any layoffs. So that's some of the reasons why maybe the percentages are lower. But still, we must, I think, respect the fact that 170 people have lost their jobs, from the leisure center to lifeguards to about 150 people that we're not hiring to do work in the parks, and reassigning people who exist here. So if we could try to also be respectful about that. And as I said, once again, our philosophy here is as normal as possible. So you're going to see the pothole fix events, and you're going to see flood prevention as well. That takes manpower as well, people power to prepare for flood prevention. So I think that's all I wanted to say today. And then Merrick's got a few more updates. Thank you.
So I wanted to reiterate some of the same messages that the mayor had provided to you just recently. And I also want to say thank you to all the residents that have essentially made it through another week. We understand that it's difficult. I think we can all here understand that it's difficult. And as we move into stage one, we have to always remind ourselves that it's not necessarily the fact that we've won this battle. In fact, we're far from that. We need to have a sense of belief in our mind that all of these restrictions that are put in place, and all of this guidance that has been put in place regarding physical distancing, the mass gathering requirements or the mass gathering restrictions still apply, and we have to remember that. The mayor had just recently said that we have to be extra vigilant, and I'm going to reiterate that message. This is the time when we need to practice those guidance measures and follow those orders. It is absolutely critical right now. As stage one approaches, as we all know, as early as May 14th, as directed by the province, we're starting to see a bit of a trickle, and we're going to see a trickle of businesses that are opening up. And so what that's doing is people are getting out. And so that means we have to maintain that 2 meters of physical distancing. We need to ensure that we stay at home when we're sick. So if we need to get a haircut and we're feeling those symptoms, we now can't get a haircut. We still have to follow all of those restrictions. All of those orders still apply. It's just we're loosening up some of the province, I should say, is loosening up some of those business closures to allow a little bit of a sense of normalcy, as the mayor had mentioned. And I do want to reiterate again is we have not beat this. In fact, we're far from beating this. But we do need to get back to some sense of normalcy and kind of get the economy back up and going. So for all of those business owners out there, so yesterday the province released some really great resources for you. Some sector-specific guidance documents. So this comes right back from hair salons to restaurants to campgrounds, just to name a few there. But I reiterate and really encourage you, and really the province really requires you, is to look at these documents. So if you are an owner or an operator of any of these kind of establishments that open up or could open up as early as May 14th, you need to look at these because they're very detailed, they're very well laid out, and I want to thank the province for actually doing this for our business community because they're asking for some of that guidance, so I appreciate what the province is doing on this one. Second part that I wanted to talk about specifically around the stage one relaunch here is some additional symptoms that you can actually be tested for. So last week, Dr. Dina Hinshaw had mentioned that they're expanding that testing eligibility for additional symptoms. So typically we were used to fever and sore throat. So other examples are muscle or joint aches or loss of sense of smell or taste. And so I encourage, as I do every press conference is get our public and residents to really educate themselves onto what some of these additional requirements are. So as a municipality, we're not necessarily running this event. However, we have that responsibility to relay some of these messages on behalf of Alberta Health Services, and the province to our residents. And so I really want to reinforce the public to actually educate themselves and to go to the Alberta government website and look at all of this information. There's great wealth of resources on there. And even the city's website, we redirect individuals to those resources. So that's I guess a bit of a rundown on the province's stage 1 relaunch strategy. I want to talk a little bit about our relaunch strategy as a city. So I can confirm that we are opening up Gas City Campground on June 1st. However, just as any other business has to follow restrictions, we also have to follow restrictions. So you're going to see a little bit of a change as it relates to the Gas City Campground. I don't want to get into specifics right now, but you will see some additional restrictions that are that the campers must follow come June 1st when they actually go and pull their trailer or have their tent set up within Gas City Campground. And so I just want to reiterate that one has been confirmed that we are opening up on June 1st. A lot of questions that I've been receiving recently is, what about the Esplanade, considering it's an art gallery, it's a museum, and it's actually listed within stage 1. As we've done in the past, and I've mentioned to the public before, is we have gone through this process very thoughtfully and very methodically and want to make responsible decisions just as we ask the public to make those responsible decisions. And so our motto within the relaunch strategy as it relates to our own city facility is we're going to move through this process very methodically and very safely, I should mention. So we want our workers to have number one, a safe workplace. And number 2 is we want our public to be able to come to a city facility and feel safe. And so we may take a little bit of time to actually ensure that we have this nailed down. And so this is when it comes down to the Esplanade. Recognizing that, yes, we could open as early as May 14th, but we want to ensure that members of the public actually have a safe workplace to come to, or our employees have a safe workplace to come to, and also the public feels safe. And so we want to be very thoughtful and make those responsible decisions. So we're going to be looking a little bit further out than May 14th. And so some additional messaging will be coming out when that occurs and what those restrictions will be when we do open it up. We are very cautious, and we will continue to be very cautious with our reopenings. So we have put in a number of, actually very few restrictions as it relates to, playgrounds and skate parks and various things like that. Is if we have not necessarily said something is closed, you can consider it open. Also, if we haven't said that we've lifted those restrictions, you can still consider those restrictions in place because we want to move through this process very methodically. So just because we say May 14th, or the province says May 14th as the relaunch date for stage 1, is we're going to move through this in a thoughtful approach. No different than how it's going to be in stage 2, and no different than how it's going to be in stage 3. Some things within stage 2 and stage 3 are very loose. Like, we still don't know what the mass gathering requirement is, and it could come out 3 days in advance. And we want to ensure that we have that time to be able to prepare. And if it's 3 days in advance, we may not have that time, and so we may not open on that specified date. But that's our motto as a responsible organization, and to be able to be have our workers work in a safe workplace and also have the public come to a safe place. I have also received a number of questions, and legitimate questions, around outdoor spaces. There's various municipalities within the country as a whole as to putting different restrictions in place, and we may have put less restrictions in place or more restrictions. Different provinces have chosen different mechanisms for this, so there is a little bit of confusion on this. In fact, there's probably quite a bit of confusion. So you can expect to see very recently, if not today, is some additional guidance for the public as to what's okay and what isn't okay in an outdoor space, what is open and what isn't open. And so please feel free to reach out look on the city's website or on that one, so for some additional guidance, just to provide that that comfort, so when our residents are using these facilities, that they know that they can use them, and just have that confirmation from the city as to what's allowed, what isn't allowed, and also just relaying some of that message from Alberta Health that they've already mentioned: the 2 meters of physical distancing, staying within your own family if you're playing sports, and the kind of the organized sports to this date is still not permitted. The last item that I want to speak about, and I want to really reinforce this one, is the fact that we are going to be, or we have actually already started moving into some preemptive, as I call it, preemptive flood mitigation measures. So it's filling of sandbags. So you're going to start seeing that, and the deployment of temporary measures. So as it relates to flood response or flood mitigation. I do want to reiterate on this one that we do not have a flood. We are doing this out of an abundance of caution, recognizing that we get a fairly short period of time from what we call the River Forecasting Center alerting us of a potential flood. So we have this very short period of time to actually set up these temporary measures, fill sandbags. So it's quite an operation. We've trained for this operation. We have a really good operation on this one. We have very trained people and trained departments and equipment in place for that. The struggle that we have is in a COVID environment, and some of the restrictions that are put in place, it's just going to take us longer to do. And so proactively, we are going to actually set up these sandbags, or fill the sandbags, set up some of these temporary measures, and hopefully we're just going to take them down again and there's no flood. But we have to do this for the safety of our residents and for the safety of our own staff. And so I don't want to get into specific details on this one, because this will be coming out in various areas, and those residents that may be potentially impacted or directly impacted by those temporary measures will get notified when in advance of some of these temporary measures being set up. So I want to leave this off by saying thank you, and I really appreciate the community for respecting all of these rules. And again, we're not out of this. We have not beat this. We have not won. And so all of these items still apply. The physical distancing, the chief medical officer of health's orders, all of this still applies. And we can't have this belief in our mind that we beat it and now everything's open and nothing applies anymore. We still have a ways to go. Thank you very much.